Today, in this episode, I'm honored to welcome Will Harris, a fourth generation farmer and owner of White Oak Pastures, a farm in Georgia that's been in his family since 1866. Will grew up on the land and, after studying animal science at the University of Georgia, spent 20 years managing a conventional industrial cattle operation using the typical tools of modern agriculture: pesticides, hormones, synthetic fertilizers, and antibiotics. In 1995, disillusioned by the environmental and ethical costs of industrial farming, Will made a bold decision to return to regenerative and traditional farming methods. Since then, White Oak Pastures has transformed into one of the most respected regenerative farms in the world, raising multiple animal species, restoring soil health, and revitalizing its rural community. Will is widely recognized as a leader in sustainable agriculture and animal welfare. So it is a pleasure to have you here. And tell me, 1866. So many years and changes have come by. How was that story?
Well, I wasn't here from the very beginning. My great grandfather started the farm in 1866, ran the farm all his life, followed by his son, my grandfather, followed by his son, my dad. My dad took over the farm after World War II, and he made some really big changes. Under his watch, it became a monocultural cattle operation. The previous generations had raised a lot of different livestock species: cows, hogs, sheep, goats, poultry,
Mhm.
processed them on the farm and sold meat at a little town in Bluffton. No refrigeration, no internal combustion engine, no USDA inspection, very primitive kind of an outfit, but it was very successful. My dad really modernized the farm. It became a monoculture of only cattle. And he was not a food chain. He was one little link in the big food chain that feeds us. And he was successful with that and ran the farm all his life. After I graduated from college, I came back and ran the farm the same way, as a monocultural, industrial uh, cattle operation, and ran it that way for 20 years profitably, but decided I didn't like it so much anymore and started changing about 25 years ago. And here we are.
So you spent 20 years with the very industrial tools that you later rejected, right? So was there a single moment that made you have that change? So was it like a harvest, an animal, a conversation with someone that made you have that change to a regenerative way of farming?
There was a moment. There was an increasing disgust with the excesses of the system, but the moment that it really struck me, we were loading out a double deck semi truck load of cattle. We would put 100 500-pound calves on that truck. And
Mhm.
they'd be on it for 36 or more hours, no food, no water, no rest. The ones on top urinating and defecating on the ones on the bottom. And I had done that dozens of times in my life. It was a common occurrence, but that day it just did not feel right. And I started moving away from it. And 25 years later, I'm still moving away from it.
Mhm. Did you have any resistance when you made that change?
There was a lot of economic, financial resistance. We were profitable as an industrial cattle operation. We had to figure out how to do it differently, and that was expensive. That was costly. Today, 25 years later, there's been a lot of books written and consultants engaged to tell people how to do that. But 25 years ago, it was you just kind of had to figure it out. There were only a few of us making the change, and we didn't know each other. This is before the internet, before cell phones were real common. So
Was
we
anyone in
were,
the family against?
I'm sorry.
Was anyone in your family against?
I was very fortunate. My dad was an only child, born in 1920. I was an only child, born in 1954.
Hmm.
So I didn't have to. And my dad, by the way, my dad had dementia by the time I started making the change. So I didn't. He was the only one I would have had resistance from. And I would have had resistance from him, but the situation was such that I didn't. So I was very fortunate, and I was able to have a free rein to do kind of what I wanted to do as long as I could afford it.
Hmm. You said that back in the day there was not much information, right? So would you do anything during that transition? Like, did you do anything wrong during that transition to a regenerative farm?
I did a number of things wrong during that
Hmm.
time, absolutely. You know, I went in the poultry business in a way that just didn't work. I tried to produce poultry 52 weeks a year, truly pastured outside, and that doesn't work well here. We've got a pretty temperate climate here in South Georgia,
Hmm.
almost in Florida, almost in Alabama. But it's a little too hot in the hottest part of the summer, a little too cold in the coldest part of the winter. I went to Idaho and bought over 1,000 goats and brought them back here, and that was a mistake.
Hmm.
They weren't acclimated for this. I'm still in the goat business, still in the poultry
Hmm.
business, but not nearly as grandiose
Hmm.
scale as I intended to be. So yes, I made my share of mistakes.
Was it because of the temperate climate? Would it be because of the like grass availability during the different seasons, or is it something else? With the
Well,
goat especially.
with the goats, it had to do more with the uh, internal parasites. There were a lot more parasites here than in Idaho, the mountains of Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
And the grass, we have a lot of grass, a lot more grass than they have out there, but it's not nearly as nutrient dense
Mm-hmm.
as the forest they have out there. So,
Yeah, was it
and
because of the soil quality, you would say, based on like the prior industrial farming, that kind of stuff?
the soil quality here is not nearly as good as it is in the mountains, in the mountain states or the Great Plains.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was raised told that this is wonderful land we have here. Well, no, it's not really. It's an ancient seabed. It
Mm-hmm.
and by the time I took over the farm, it had been abused for 50 years. So
Mm-hmm.
you know it's not a it, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of improvement. Today, the soil is far better than it was when I took it over. The organic matter when I took over the farm after being farmed industrially for so long was about 1%
Mm-hmm.
organic matter. Today, it's about 5.5% organic matter. So it's a lot better now.
That's good. And what is the like your daily routine comparing to the industrial farming and having now a regenerative farming? What's your routine, your day-to-day basis, having that difference?
Well, it's a lot different from an operational perspective. I used to go to my pastures every day, literally looking for something to kill. You know, I wanted to have a monoculture of cattle, grazing a monoculture of Tifton 85 Bermuda grass, and
Mhm.
no animal other than cows and no plant other than Tifton 85 Bermuda grass was allowed. I knew what pesticide would kill whatever intruder was there. You
Mhm.
know, side means kill. Homicide is kill
Mhm.
people. Insecticides kill insects, nematicides kill nematodes, fungicides kill fungus, on and on and on. And I literally, as is true with most industrial farmers, was looking for something to kill. And I was good at it. I knew what pesticide to use. Today, when I go to my pasture, I'm interested in keeping everything alive that's part of that ecosystem. I
Mhm.
believe that every species in that ecosystem has a role. Sometimes we recognize it. We know that bees pollinate plants. We recognize a lot of them, but I believe that every species of plant or animal or microbe in an ecosystem has a role there. And I think that when we use a side to kill one particular species, something goes undone in that ecosystem, and it has a cost.
Yes. Did you, when you started doing regenerative method of farming, did you, since you said there was no resources as available as today, obviously with the internet, everything else, where did you find that many information? Was it just trial and error, or did you go through books and just read, educate yourself until you really know what you were doing?
It was more trial and error than anything else. I did read what was available. There was not a whole lot of stuff available. It might have been out there, but I didn't know where it was.
Hmm.
So, the one of the great leaders in this kind of holistic management, land management, is Alan Savory from South Africa.
Hmm.
And, and if I known of Alan Savory earlier, it would have saved me a lot of time and effort and expense. And I did come to know Alan, and Alan's been here to my farm a lot. He's 90 something years old now.
Hmm.
But and I learned a lot from him. I actually went to Zimbabwe to his farm and spent about 3 weeks early on in my transition.
And what's the difference between, for example, his farm and your farm, you would say, for the climate and everything else?
Oh, well, there's a lot of differences. Just Africa
Hmm.
versus the United States. There's,
Hmm.
we raise generally the same species of animals, generally, uh,
Hmm.
but we get 52 to 54 inches of rain a year on my farm in Georgia. He probably gets 10 or 12 inches on his farm in Zimbabwe. So there's a lot of difference in the ecosystem.
Hmm.
And I tell you this, I've traveled a lot, and
Hmm.
I've never been any further from home than Zimbabwe. But I felt more at home in Zimbabwe than I did anywhere else I've ever been. And
Interesting.
it's because Alan has spent so long, so many years, so many decades uh, honing that those natural cycles of nature. The cycles of nature are the water cycle from rain, the microbial cycle from microbes in the soil, the mineral cycle from stones breaking down, giving up minerals, the on and on, many, many, many cycles,
Hmm.
grazing cycle, on and on, so many cycles of nature. And when those cycles of nature are allowed to operate optimally,
Hmm.
it generates a bounty of nature. The uh, if you think about all that coal and oil and gas in the ground that we've been living on for the last 100 years,
Hmm.
that's the bounty of nature from
Hmm.
the ecosystem in the era of the dinosaur.
Yeah.
And the land spins off a bounty if it's allowed to, if the cycles of nature are operating optimally. And in the industrial monocultural system I was operating in, we intentionally broke those cycles of
Hmm.
nature because we thought that's what you were supposed to do.
Hmm.
But when you do that, the bounty of nature does not flow the way it's supposed to.
Mm. Yes. And what would you say it's like one of the biggest problems in practice for factory farming that you've seen in your own experience for just the environment health and also just ethically that's not ethical as it should be.
Well, you can argue ethics. You can't argue facts. And the
Yeah.
facts are that when you break the cycles of nature, you limit the bounty that comes off the land. You are uh, relegated to a lesser amount and relegated to use artificial tools to extract that lesser bounty.
Hmm. And what is like one of the things that you've seen that's like um, in industrial farming that is like disgusting, you would say. That's like this is not good. It's wrong.
There are many things I can show.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the most striking, and you can see this if you look at on our website. Our website is whiteoakpastures.com.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a waterway that the shed water from my farm joins the shed water from a neighbor's farm.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a video of that, on my website. And we had just gotten about a 6-inch rain that in a fairly short period of time, which happens here 2 or 3 times a year.
Yeah.
And the video shows the shed water coming off my farm and joining in with the shed water off my neighbor's farm. And the two things that are obvious is that more water's coming off his land than mine, even though my property is a bigger watershed than his. But
Mm.
most striking is the fact that the water coming off my farm, the shed water, excess water, is reasonably clear. It's stained
Mm-hmm.
brown, but it's not muddy. The water coming off his land looks like a strawberry milkshake. I mean, it's just incredibly muddy. And
Mm-hmm.
where the two waters come together, it's just so striking. It's like a mic drop moment
Mm-hmm.
that, if you look at that, I shouldn't have to argue anymore. That should be enough. There are many other things. I see species of plants and animals, insects here now on this farm that I did not see 25 years ago
Mm-hmm.
because I had decimated the population using chemical fertilizers and pesticides and wormers and subtherapeutic antibiotics and tillage and the other industrial tools.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say are one of the most misconceptions about regenerative agriculture? Because I've seen many people talk that regenerative agriculture, you still kill cows. That's unethical. What would you say against that?
Well, I think that probably the most abuse
Mm-hmm.
that's been dealt out to regenerative agriculture is the cattle thing. There's all the research that the vegan community wants puts out shows cattle in feedlots and highlights the environmental damage and the humane cruelty of it. And that's good press for them, but it's simply not right. That's not what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do we slaughter cattle? Yes, we do. We slaughter them in the most humane manner we possibly can. You know, everything that lives will die, including me and you. And it's not about keeping them alive, it's about humanely dispatching them. And I'm very comfortable with that.
Mm-hmm.
The other, even more insulting message is that cattle are destroying the environment. And cattle raised properly are the best environmental beneficial tool that we have.
Mm-hmm.
I just told you that my land has gone from 0.5% to 5.5% organic now.
Yeah.
That's because of cattle. Cattle not in a feedlot in mud and dust and manure, cattle out grazing growing plants. When cattle are grazing, not just cattle, but ruminants are grazing growing plants, the plant's like a carbon pump.
Mm-hmm.
It's growing, it's absorbing energy from the sun, it's breathing in greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, and other gases, turning those gases with the energy of the sun into carbohydrate and protein and fat
Yeah.
that's in that plant. And the plant's growing above the ground and it's growing roots below the ground. And if there's this much forage above the ground, there's that much root under the ground. And then the cattle come through and they bite it off. And when they bite off that top, those roots slough off. That carbon is sequestered in the ground for some long period of time. Then we don't graze that land again for 60 days.
Hmm.
60 days, that plant recovers and grows more forage on top and more roots under the bottom. And we do it over and over and over every 60 days ongoing. And that plant is like a carbon pump, pulling carbon out of the atmosphere and putting it into the ground. And it's very obvious. I can show you.
Hmm. Yeah, one of the biggest misconceptions I see too is from the vegan propaganda that many people like to say that killing the cows is bad, but they forget about the fact that everyone dies. Every single species dies. We, both of us die. And for example, one of the biggest things that when they bring and talk about ethics, we bring ethics back. So talking ethics against ethics, that a cattle can feed a family for a year.
Yeah.
Depends on how much meat you consume, but roughly a family a year. And when you're having that monoculture farm, you're killing the plants, you're killing the bees, all the insects over there, and just for a can of almond milk. So it really doesn't make sense for me, and that's why I wanted to bring up this talk, and also about the fact that regenerative agriculture is completely different than industrial farming.
We talk about. I have full respect for the vegetarian decision. If a person
Hmm.
chooses to not eat meat, I would go to war to defend their right
Hmm.
to do that. But then there are militant vegetarians or vegans, and they don't just want to choose to not eat meat. They want to choose what everyone should eat. No one should eat meat, and
Yeah.
that's not okay.
Hmm.
And I'm amazed at the efficacy of the messaging those people have put out there. Most of the people I know, if they hadn't been informed, believe that cattle are bad for the environment. When I can show them unequivocally that no, they're not. They can be if they're raised wrong,
Hmm.
but in a properly managed setting, they're very beneficial for the environment.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. And so, what cattle breed do you process now at White Oak? So, I would like to ask you this because each species has like a different characteristic about being easier to fatten them up or not. And did you make a change in your cattle when you switched from regenerative back again?
I am making a change in my cattle, but it's not so breed specific. So when
Mhm.
my great grandfather came here in 1866, he brought a herd of cattle with him. I don't have any pictures, but I know enough history to know that those would have been cracker cattle, the descendants of the cattle the Spanish brought. Cattle are not indigenous to North America.
Yeah.
So he had the herd of cattle and he saved his own heifers and bulls. Heifers are young females. He saved his own heifers and bulls. And it was like a separate breed. My grandfather, followed by my father, followed by me, started the practice of buying purebred bulls to improve the herd.
Hmm.
And between the three of us, I'm sure we have bought at least one of every breed of bull that's ever been to North America, from Hereford to Angus to Charolais to Limousin to Brahman to just on and on. And in doing that, we mongrelized the herd. We would save females and buy males.
Hmm.
And about 10 years ago, for a number of reasons, I stopped doing that. And I started saving my own bulls and heifers.
Hmm.
So I'm not bringing any new genetics into the herd, and I'm taking this diverse genetics that are here and folding them back upon themselves.
Hmm.
So it is literally creating a breed of cattle, and I select for what I want. And my cattle have changed dramatically. My cattle have gotten to be very tall, narrow, a lot of bone.
Hmm.
Now I pick animals that are shorter, thicker, more muscle. And
Hmm.
after only 10 years, that's not very long, I can tell a difference.
Hmm. And what do you do with the other cattle?
Oh, slaughter them.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. And so in Brazil, there's a breed called Nelore that it
Mhm.
is really common. So is there a reason it's native from India? You probably know that. I'm just emphasizing that from to the audience. And is there any reason why that breed is not common in the US?
That breed's claim to fame would primarily be that they're a tropical breed that handles heat very well.
Hmm.
So they would work fine here where I am, almost to the Gulf of Mexico.
Hmm.
Uh, there have been some Nelore cattle brought here, not many. The
Hmm.
Brahman cattle are the most common tropical cattle that have been here. They've been here for over 100 years. I can't really say why. There's nothing wrong with Nelore cattle. And there's no reason for people not to use them, but they just never have caught on as an import breed the way that some other breeds have.
Hmm. In your farm, was that ever a moment that you that pulled you or your family away from the like the main focus from creating cattle and other animals using the same land? Because I can explain from my grandpa's perspective. So he had a really big opportunity when there was a paper company, a paper industry that came and was built close by his farm, and it would bring a lot of profit for him to plant some eucalyptus on a plain land, and that would bring a lot of profit. And he would, for example, just separate the cattle that he would create, just like a regenerative, um, in a regenerative base. However, he would separate that plain land for eucalyptus and other stuff because that would bring a lot of profit. Um, and did you have any of that? Any similar circumstance to that?
Yes, not so much in forestry, but the answer is yes. I raised only cattle as a cash crop, as my dad did for many years. I guess it probably would have been 50 or more years of purely a cattle farm.
Mhm.
Today we raise cows, hogs, sheep, goats, rabbits, and poultry, and we have a small organic vegetable operation. So we not so much on the forestry side, the way your granddad did, but more on the multi-species of animals that and the farm is healthier for having those
Mhm.
multi-species.
Mhm.
I actually do plant a lot of trees, not so much for the timber or the economics, but
Mhm.
for the benefit. You know, those roots reach down 20 or 30 feet and bring nutrients back up. I used to own, my dad owned a bulldozer, and I owned a bulldozer later. And I love pushing down trees, and I pushed down too many trees, and now I'm planting trees. And
Mhm.
planting trees is makes me feel good, but it's not planting trees is not really expensive, but keeping the animals off the trees is very expensive. And,
Mhm.
but I do plant a lot of trees.
I saw the government of Georgia recently passed a bill called SB 144, and I saw you on Instagram talking about it on the White Oaks Pasture Instagram. And what is that bill about, and why does it empower big tech and big food?
That bill, in my mind, in my opinion, protects big tech from some of these technologies that I think probably do us harm. What it does is they develop the technologies, they sell them to us farmers, and if they're successful, then they get the profit. If they're not successful, they don't cover the loss.
Hmm.
So I think that there's a lot wrong with the way we're governed, and I think that that's one example. And I'm sorry that that passed in Georgia.
Hmm. What would you do differently for regenerative farmers just like you and many others that are starting? What would you think would be a good act from the government to incentivize that?
You know, we could talk about a lot of things, but I
Hmm.
think it'd be a waste. I don't think that our government is going to do much for us. The
Hmm.
fact is, so much of our legislation is controlled by lobbyists, and lobbyists are hired by big tech, big ag, big food, etc.
Hmm.
So I think that if we see meaningful change in the way we produce food in this country, it won't be by government regulation. It'll be by consumers making demands.
Hmm.
I've been pleasantly surprised at the success that the Make America Healthy Again movement has had. I'm not sure they're going to get us where we need to be, but I'm sure they have moved the ball further than I thought possible, and I'm grateful for that.
Hmm. I agree. I saw that on Joe Rogan, and I'd like to bring it up now to our conversation. Why is product of USA so misleading in terms of just saying the truth?
It's horribly misleading.
Hmm.
Before 2015, beef that was labeled product of the USA was born, raised, and slaughtered in the one of the 50 states in the USA. In 2015, they changed the rule so that if any value was added in the 50 states, it was product of the USA. And that allowed animals, cattle, to be born, raised, slaughtered, processed in 20 something countries: Australia, New Zealand, Uruguay, South American countries, many countries. And it can be labeled product of the USA, just like mine is. And I want to say this: I'm not saying that beef brought in from other countries is inferior. I am not saying that. I'm saying it's not product of the USA.
Yeah.
And the only reason that lobbyists sought to get that rule changed is because it made it easier for them to bring in foreign beef and not admit it was foreign beef. Foreign beef is fine, but let's just tell the truth. Let's just say what it is. I think that many of these changes that have been made are intentionally misleading. I
Hmm.
think it intentionally misleads the consumer to believe the product is something that it's not.
But is there any examples, for example, in the agricultural realm?
Well, I mean, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but the product of the USA with beef brought in from
Hmm.
many countries, many different continents, and labeled
Yeah.
product of the USA
Hmm.
is very uh, clear.
No, yeah, I totally understand. I was just saying, like, if there's any other example rather than that.
Oh, I'm sure there are. I have not researched exactly what is and what's not.
Hmm. Is there any certifications or labels that you actually trust when it comes to food transparency?
There are some good labels.
Hmm.
The American Grass-Fed Association, I think, is a good label, that certification. There are a number of them out there. There's some that aren't good, and I don't want to list them. I don't want to be challenged about it, but there's some that are not so good. It's pretty easy for a farmer to get a certification. It's pretty difficult for a consumer to determine whether or not that certification is good or not, or whether or not it's really indicative of what they're looking for in a product. And I have a lot of certifications. I've had just about all of them, and I've dropped a lot of them. And my daughter manages that part of our business. If I were doing it, I'd probably drop them all right now. I think that with social media, it's so easy for consumers to know uh, anything they want to know about the farm they buy their food from, especially if the social media is good and if it is coupled with the ability to uh, go and visit the farm. We have an open door policy. I'm on a call here. I'm on a phone call here. He just came in. I'm sorry.
No,
But
you're good. No problem. I was also having a problem with my camera. Can you see?
it,
Like,
it is you're getting blurry and clear and blurry and clear.
yeah, that's weird. Just trying to adjust that, but while we were talking, but for some reason it's fine. We can continue from that. I guess I won't make you wait because of that. If my camera
No,
doesn't go, it's all right. What
no.
matters is the content that we're putting out and the information. So, what are we saying? Oh yeah, the food transparency in labels. So, would you say that grass-fed is also slightly misleading in a way? Because I've seen, obviously, I don't know if that's true. As I said, I've seen on social media, and I've seen like factory farm cattle being fed like GMO grass, bad quality grass, and they call it as grass fed, despite the fact that is also not grass finished, but they can call it as grass fed.
Yeah, I've heard those things. I've not been on a tour of the United States to see who is and who is not,
Hmm.
and because I don't buy anybody's, I'm not particularly focused on doing the research to find out. But
Hmm.
I'm sure that there are cheaters in just about any sort of claims that anyone wants to make, and that makes it incumbent upon the shopper, the consumer, to find out what's really true.
Hmm. Yeah. So what would you say is the future of America in farming and health in the next 10 years? Do you think it's going for a better path, or do you think it's going through a more quote unquote darker path that gives big tech, big ag, big food more advantages?
Well, you put the 10-year window on, and I don't know how long it'll take. The way we produce our food now is incredibly damaging. I'm talking about industrial commodity food, incredibly damaging. We pollute the water, we degrade the soil. There's
Mhm.
there is a dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico. There used to be a thriving oystering ground,
Yeah.
and the chemical fertilizers and pesticides running down there have destroyed that oystering area. And this is as big as the state of Massachusetts. I mean, it's an incredible cost, but the pesticide companies and the fertilizer companies won't pay it. The farmers won't
Yeah.
pay it. We'll all pay it.
Yeah.
So we have spun those costs off to make really cheap food. The food is not cheap. We don't pay much for it because the costs have been spun off to others. So that will catch up with us, and I don't know when, and I don't know what the impact will be. I know it won't be pretty, and I know it'll be expensive, but I'm not in the predicting business of what it'll look like. I worry about it, and it could be, it could be avoided. If enough people started making wiser choices in terms of what they were going to eat, in, enabling more producers to farm properly, then that could be avoided or minimized. But we just don't seem to be doing much of that.
I agree. I agree. Despite all the data showing higher risk of diabetes, higher everything, higher obesity, higher all problems, all diseases that could be avoided eating better food. And
There have been times that I thought I am an early innovator in
mhm,
changing the way we produce food in this country. And
mhm,
there are other times I think, no, I'm just a niche producer that's serving a small market. And I go back and forth. And Either way, I guess it's okay for me. I mean, we're making a living doing it. My two grown daughters are back. I've got grandchildren on the farm
Mhm.
as a niche producer. I prefer to be an early innovator in changing the way we produce food. But if it's a niche producer, I'll take it. It'll be all
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. I've seen so White Oak Pastures got really famous too because of the wise way the marketing was done for the farm. That's what I've heard a lot, and that's I believe one of the things that may help you to be a very well-known farm. Because social media is really it's a really good way to share your thoughts, share how your farm is, and everything else. And what was the idea from that? I've heard you had a different name before choosing White Oak Pastures before, and I would like to ask you how was that process of creating an account, creating Instagram, and targeting health conscious people in your farm?
Well, the farm used to was and my great father called it Tillamook Oak Pastures. And a Tillamook oak is a local name for a white oak, but nobody knows that except people right around here. So when I started branding the farm, I just changed it from Tillamook oak to white oak, which was not really much of a change. When I changed from being a commodity cow guy to what we do today, uh, uh, I was purely a wholesale company. I
Mhm.
purely raised. I was fortunate in my timing, and I was able to sell Publix Supermarket and Whole Foods Market and Kroger and some others the first pound of American grass-fed beef that they bought and marketed as American grass-fed beef. Just a pure dumb luck timing situation, but I'm grateful for it. And we operated successfully wholesaling beef to those grocery customers, and it was fine. When they changed the law, the rule that we talked about earlier, and allowed imported beef to come in, I kept my grocery store business, but I wasn't able to make any money on it. So I had some bad years.
Yeah.
And when the pandemic, my daughter came home from college and started the online store. They didn't do much, but we had it.
Hmm.
When the pandemic hit, the online store really caught fire. I mean, it really, we sold out of everything quickly.
Hmm.
And since that time, we have been migrating the company from a purely wholesale grocery company to a direct to consumer online. You can order it from whiteoakpastures.com. We have our own order fulfillment where we pick and pack and we ship it. We ship 5 or 6 trucks a week out from FedEx or UPS.
Hmm. The entire United States?
Yes. Sadly, yes. I really don't want to, well, 48 states.
Mhm.
I don't want to ship to 48 states. I want to be a local provider, but I have a lot of overhead. I need to sell a certain amount of stuff. And currently, to sell enough stuff to make my business work, we have to
Mhm.
ship 48 states.
Mhm.
My hope is that uh, as time goes on, it'll evolve into me being able to sell what I need to sell in 2 or 3 states. And other people will sell in the other 40 something states. But that hadn't happened yet.
Mhm. So I would like to get back a little bit when we were talking about new farmers trying to reintroduce the regenerative model of creation, right? And what would be some advices? What are some key basic things that you should know before starting a regenerative agriculture style of creating cattle?
Well, I actually founded a 501(c)(3), a nonprofit called CFAR, Center for Agricultural Resilience, CFAR.
Hmm.
And we bring students here and teach them how we farm, the way we farm, the way we market. We teach them everything we know. A problem I have seen is that people who get excited about this kind of food production really focus on the production in the field.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great. But you also have to get it processed and marketed. I tell them there are three legs on the stool.
Mm-hmm.
And this natural inclination we all have to focus on production is great, but you better know how you're going to make it marketable and how you're going to market it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a little difficult to convey to people sometimes.
Yeah. What about the packaging is hard?
Well, it that's more in the production side, and it is. You know, we work on it all the time, and the packages we started out with when we first started, wouldn't work today.
Mm-hmm.
And we've evolved and evolved and evolved, and we ship it today with insulated boxes and dry ice, and we've learned a lot. And we actually teach that too. We have classes through our nonprofit on how to sell direct and ship and pick and
Mm-hmm.
pack and all those things that you got to know if you're going to want to do that. The model of just going to the farmer's market on Saturday morning and selling it works for some people. It does not work for a lot of people. It would not work for us. I'm in one of the poorest counties in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
Southwest Georgia, and the farmers markets that are here they're nice. I like them. I like the people that are there, but I couldn't sell enough stuff there to make my business work.
Makes sense. And looking back, what part of your great grandfather's wisdom you wish modern society hasn't forgotten?
That's a good question, and I have an answer. So I told you that my great grandfather and grandfather were the purveyor of meat and poultry for Bluffton, for this little town I'm sitting
Mhm.
in. And they aspired to have the best beef and pork and lamb and chicken and duck they could possibly have because they wanted to be the preferred supplier so they could charge more for it.
Mhm.
And we when we industrialized agriculture, we changed that and we set commodity standards.
Mhm.
And it was all about meeting the minimum standard so it's marketable. Whereas my great grandfather and grandfather were focused on making their product the best it could be, my dad and I were focused on meeting the minimum standard, making it as cheap as we possibly could so that it would just get under the wire. And,
Mhm.
and because it was going to be commingled with everybody else's, it was going to lose its image as being White Oak Pastures. So there was no incentive to make it the best you could make it. So
Mhm.
we did ourselves a grave disservice with that commoditization. That's called commoditization. Made it a commodity.
It was amazing talking with you and learning a lot from regenerative agriculture. I wish I could ask you a bunch of more questions. It was amazing talking with you. I also saw recently that you're going to a metabolic summit in Tampa, I think, in October, November. I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember exactly. I'm gonna be there, so it will be great to meet you there and have a little talk personally.
I look,
Um,
I look forward to that.
yes, and thank you so much for talking with you. And what is your final message for the audience about the talk that we had, and what do you think was missing from it?
Well, I think if it's any advice I would give a young prospective farmer, grower, stockman, I would tell them to find a farm that is operating successfully as near where they live, where they plan to operate as possible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the ecosystem is important. And if you learn how to raise cattle well in Bluffton, Georgia, you may not be able to do it very well in another ecosystem. I've traveled a lot to farms. And
Mm-hmm.
when I go to a farm, and it doesn't have to be that far away. It can just be. I look at the land and the animals and the ecosystem, and I'm always so aware. I don't know what to do here. I
Mm-hmm.
know what to do in Bluffton, Georgia, because I've been doing it for a long time and I've gotten good at it. But the idea that you can go to Hawaii and learn how to farm in Alaska is not right. And I urge young prospective farmers to try to learn how to farm as near as possible where they're going to farm and with as much of the same production as they're going to raise.